Chronovisor, written and recorded by David Wright. Based on a true story. No, really, Google it. Giovanni Montini, known to millions as Pope Paul VI, examined the Vatican brief with appropriate skepticism. He prided himself in being a man of faith and truth. He believed in the Gospels, of course, the miracles of the Old Testament and of the saints, the virgin birth, and the resurrection from the dead. But he also believed in the truth of modern science, space, medicine, and the atom bomb. But this was a time machine? He transfixed his assistant, Father Damien, with a dubious, accusatory glare over his gold-rimmed spectacles. I know how it sounds, Your Holiness, but the story has already made the papers. As it comes from a priest, the Vatican cannot remain silent any longer, and frankly, the evidence is incontrovertible. Incontrovertible? Giovanni cocked a hairy eyebrow. You've actually seen this? He searched for an appellation not quite so H.G. Wells, and floundered. Chronovisor? Father Damien offered, just in the nick of time. Yes, I have. Father Damien was not a brother given to fancy. In truth, Giovanni had always found him to be quite the skeptic, perhaps too much so. But that was why he trusted him so completely. Again, it came back to the necessary balance between faith and truth, the twin pillars of the Roman Catholic Church. At least for a modern pope like Paul VI. Well then, I suppose, if it must be done. Giovanni gestured vaguely with his wrinkled, ring-studded hand. Immediately, the towering Swiss guards at the door snapped apart to reveal a diminutive priest dressed in old, weather-worn robes and carrying what appeared to be a small television set. After an interminable pause, he shuffled down the great hall with short, choppy steps, stumbling once and cringing in terror at the prospect of splattering his treasured invention all over the marble floor, like a flat full of farm-fresh eggs. But in the end, he made it all the way to the Pope's throne without mishap, whereupon he dropped to one knee and placed his odd-looking box at the Pope's feet, as if it were the Holy Grail. Only as an afterthought did he scrunch forward and kiss the pontiff's ring. Giovanni sighed. So, Father Ernetti, he began with ironic congeniality, what's all this fuss about a time machine? Have you been having a little fun with us, yes? The little priest glanced up with an expression so filled with horror and innocence the pontiff could barely suppress a chuckle. No, Your Holiness, quite the contrary. I am in earnest, I assure you. I have invented a time machine, or more accurately, a chronovisor. There it was. He said it. No wink, no nudge, just a big, bold lie. And to the Pope, no less. Head of the Roman Catholic Church, and Christ's mortal representative on earth. What had become of the clergy these days? Did they just let any old charlatan wear a robe? So you can go back in time? The Pope queried with perverse curiosity. Not exactly. I can only view the past. Any point in time, any person or place in history. Oh, isn't that marvelous? And you have done this? The priest nodded vigorously, apparently immune to irony. Perhaps you could provide us with a little demonstration. Why, yes, of course. What would you like to see? Giovanni would have liked to see a great many things from history. Greek fire, the fall of Rome, the Apollo moon landing, the real one, not the fake production they put on American TV. But as he did not, as yet, have a single grain of faith in Father Ernetti's silly invention, he might as well just pick something obvious. How about the crucifixion of our Lord? Father Ernetti grinned knowingly. "I thought you might say that. The coordinates have already been programmed into—" His words became unintelligible at this point as he began fiddling with his machine like a madman possessed, which no doubt he was. Or so the Pope thought, until an image appeared on the screen. The face of a bearded stranger, bruised, bleeding, horribly disfigured with infinite pain and sadness. It wasn't the Christ Giovanni was used to seeing, nothing like the Renaissance depictions in murals and sculptures, the face he'd seen 100 times a day in churches all around the world. There was no forgiveness in those deep, dark Semitic eyes, no cry of grace and mercy from those red, broken lips, only the bitterness of betrayal, the agony of despair, and a dead man's curse repeating over and over again. The Pope gasped, suddenly terrified beyond all reason. Father Ernetti, on the other hand, seemed completely unaffected, almost as if it wasn't quite real to him. And maybe, Giovanni suspected, it wasn't. After all, this could be any poor soul. How did Father Ernetti know it was Jesus? But still, there was something about that face, something haunting, something terrible to behold. I hope you are enjoying Chronovisor. Be sure to like and subscribe. I took a photograph of our Savior's face and sent it to the newspapers, Ernetti babbled. But it's still not the same as watching him live on the Chronovisor. Quite impressive, don't you think? Almost like seeing him in person. How is this possible? The Pope asked. I'm so glad you asked. Ernetti was grinning again from ear to hairy ear. Every event in history, no matter how weighty or insignificant, leaves a footprint of electromagnetic radiation and sound waves. A few years ago, an international team of scientists, including myself, Werner von Braun, Enrico Fermi, and our very own Father Brunet, was assembled to build a device to detect these footprints. And thus, the Chronovisor was born. The Pope was dumbfounded. But surely this wasn't real science. It had to be a trick of some kind. Giovanni had seen movies before, some so real he almost believed they were happening right before his eyes. Maybe this was just such a movie. If so, then he knew just how to prove it false. You say you can view anything in history? The priest nodded. Yes, anything or anyone, as long as we know where and when. I once watched an entire Roman play, The Lost Tragedy of Thyestes, by Quintus Ennius, the father of Roman poetry. I have the transcription if you'd like to read it, or we can just watch it together. No. I was thinking of something more recent and personal. The Pope leaned back in his throne, his confidence gradually returning. Perhaps my coronation. Father Ernetti blinked, and for a second the Pope thought he had him. But then the little priest just grinned again, showing his horrid yellow teeth. But of course, he said with complete confidence. It took a bit longer this time, but eventually there was another buzz of static, and then a moving image appeared on the little TV screen. It was Giovanni's face. There was no doubt about it. But Giovanni was still not convinced this wasn't just some cheap trick. This part of the coronation was televised, he knew. Perhaps if Father Ernetti had edited the footage somehow, he could have made this movie himself. Giovanni would have to be even cannier if he wanted to catch this charlatan. That is impressive, he said, smiling. But what about before the coronation? Maybe an hour or two before. Can you see what I was doing then? Giovanni knew this was impossible. He was alone at that time, in complete seclusion. No media, no cameras, no assistants. Just the future Pope and his God in quiet meditation. For the first time, Father Ernetti hesitated. "I'm not sure. Do you know where you would have been at that time?" "Dressing, I suppose, in my private chambers." "Ah, yes." The little priest returned to his dials and buttons. This slight modification took even more time than the previous one. At last he stepped back. "Okay, I think I found you." The picture was grainy and distorted, but still recognizable. Pope John the 23rd, on his deathbed, the life slowly draining out of him like juice from a grape. Giovanni remembered this moment in history as if it were yesterday. He should. It was the most important day of his life. "Hold on, that's not right," Father Ernetti mumbled half to himself. "The chronometer is off. I must have gone back too far. That's not you at all." But Giovanni knew he was in the Pope's chambers at the time, just out of view, by the Pope's bedside, watching the old pontiff die, feeding him the hemlock that was killing him. Of all the moments in history, why did the Chronovisor capture this one? Was it mere chance or divine intervention? Did Ernetti know what was happening? What he'd just witnessed? But no, that was impossible, Giovanni reassured himself. Even with the Chronovisor, Ernetti couldn't see the poison working through the Holy Father's bloodstream, and he wouldn't see the pillow that was about to descend on the old pontiff's frightened face. Giovanni would make certain of that. "I can fix this." The oblivious priest turned back to his baffling machine. "Let me just move the chronometer forward a little bit." "Stop! I have seen enough," Giovanni commanded, his sudden anger echoing off the gold-gilded walls and stained glass windows. The old priest froze above his machine like a petrified gargoyle, his childlike confusion morphing into unmitigated terror. Giovanni struggled to recover his composure, and after a few awkward seconds managed a brief, forced chuckle. "Your little toy is quite amusing. I should like to study it further. You may go." Father Ernetti blinked twice, visibly amazed that the papal interview had ended so abruptly, and then reached for his magic box. "Oh, you may leave the chronovisor here. It is quite safe, I assure you, quite safe." The Pope shooed the little priest away with a wave of his wrinkled hand. "Yes, Your Holiness," Father Ernetti said dutifully after another awkward pause. He ducked his head in a pathetic sort of bow, his feet shuffling backwards. "Yes, Your Holiness." He bowed again, and then turned reluctantly to make his exit with more short, shuffling steps. Only after the little priest had completely left the grand hall did Father Damien venture to interrupt the silence with a polite cough. "A wise decision, I'm sure, Your Highness," he said carefully. "Such knowledge is too dangerous for a simple man like Father Ernetti." He hovered over the pontiff's shoulder, with a question still left unspoken. "Yes," Giovanni prompted. "Speak freely, Father Damien." "There is still the matter of the evidence." "What evidence?" The Pope cocked his head to face his dutiful assistant. "The photograph submitted to the newspapers, and the lost tragedy of Thyestes. I've read it. It's really quite good." Oh, yes. Giovanni had almost forgotten about those. But then, photographs could be faked, and plays forged. There were 1,000 ways to discredit a little man like Father Ernetti. Perhaps a deathbed confession would do the trick. one witnessed by only a fellow priest. It had worked before. It would work again. "I'm sure you'll think of something," the Pope said wearily. Father Damien took a breath, apparently unwilling to let the matter go just yet. "And then there's the Chronovisor itself," he said. "It's truly a miracle of science. Think of all the questions of church history that could finally be answered. We can finally know the truth." The truth? Giovanni had thought about nothing else. But there was one question that must never be answered, one truth that must never be known. He glanced down at the Chronovisor, the face of Pope John still staring up at him, the bitterness of betrayal, the agony of despair, and the dead man's curse repeating over and over again. "Destroy it," Giovanni demanded, his voice echoing furiously back at him. Father Damien was clearly startled by Giovanni's angry response. But he could be trusted to do the right thing. He had always been a clever assistant and quick to respond to his pontiff's changing moods. With surprising strength for a man of the cloth, he picked up Ernetti's little magic box and smashed it into 1,000 pieces on the ancient marble floor. Oddly enough, Giovanni felt a pang of regret. He had always prided himself in being the Pope of faith and truth, and now he had destroyed both on the same day. It was a shame, perhaps, Giovanni thought, but a necessary sacrifice. He knew better than anyone how God worked in mysterious ways. The end. I hope you enjoyed Chronovisor, written and recorded by David Wright. Don't forget to like and subscribe.